Good, perfect. So in the previous video, I was showing you how to get started with a Vite application. So we have it running in here, and this application just has this index HTML that has some HTML that shows you that this is just basic HTML, like regular web standards. And then we are rendering all of the React app inside this root. And then that root here in the main.js, which it's imported in here. So if I go into this main.js, command click, then this is showing me that it's importing this index page from this component. And then that one is just rendering that here in a strict mode. If I go inside that, that is just a component that is just rendering this. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, I guess, it's going to be how do we combine this with, oh, actually, I have another one that I should show you first. And it's that everything in here, I don't know if you notice, we are running this on the port 5173. When I just created the application, it seems that Vite immediately started creating what it's called the development server. So if I stop that, if you take a look here in the package JSON, you can see that we have a script that is called dev, and then we have another one that is called build. Okay, so if I do npm run dev, am I running the correct one? Yes, it should be that one, but that should be in the correct folder. So if I do that in there, then it runs the development server. So if I stop that and then I restart, it doesn't work. Again, I run this. And then the nice thing about the development server is that any changes that you make in here, so for instance, if I just go and say index page and then put an emoji, like a page in there, it gets refreshed automatically, like similar to what we were using reload. I don't know this in here, so not that dark. So the problem is that, or that's actually very beneficial. Now, there is a different thing that you could do. Remember the Babel part where we were actually transpiling the JSX to traditional JavaScript or vanilla JavaScript? You can also do that by running npm run build. So when you run npm run build, that remember everything that you do with the scripts or like anything you say npm run is going to be running these scripts. So I'm running this npm run build, which runs the Vite build command. And the Vite build command is going to create a dist folder where it is going to compile everything of your source files into a specific folder that is going to be completely static. So that's the thing I want you to remember from this. We are going for this architecture, and then basically the server, the only thing the server has to do is to serve this static folder. That's how we were doing it in Project 2. And before we were just like serving standard HTML with vanilla JavaScript. Now we are going to be serving in here, basically this is going to be like React build code, okay? And this is going to be created like with this Vite build thing, okay? So actually let's put it in here. Vite build, which we run with npm run build, okay? And all of this is just going to be standard JavaScript. So in a way, we kind of are going to have like two folders in here. And then you wonder, there you go. So I can do, so we are going to have like an index JavaScript. Then there we go. And then I'm going to have like the files. And then this, come on, let me get this one. Why doesn't let me? What about this one? So if I do, okay, so let me get it from here. This one, come on. There we go. So if I put this one in here, and then let me make this one a little bit bigger. Come on. Can I do it in here? Yeah, that kind of counts. Okay. So this one in here, it's actually going to be like a new type of file. Like all of this is going to be like a main JavaScript file. And all of this, actually, let me change the color for that and then say this is also going to be red. So this is going to be your React code. And then actually the one that is running this Vite build, it's going to be kind of like we are going to be going from here to here. And this is the process that it's called transpiling. So actually, like Vite is going to be the one that does that, I think. but in the past, this is what we did with Babel. I'm not sure if Vite runs Babel, but I think it might not. So let's just say it like we do the Vite build that you see in there. Does that make sense? So we are actually going to be, and this is not a static code, this is going to be our source code. So our source code is going to get transpiled in here. These are all the files that are going to be sent in here, and then in here actually, like we are going to be executing all of that JavaScript file. Notice that that's a JavaScript file and not the JSX, because the browser doesn't speak JSX. I hope that makes sense. This is very important and for you to understand. So having said that, let me put that in here, and then if I do this, so now we have this dist folder. So if I refresh this doesn't work because I don't have the server running. And then I want you to see what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into the dist folder, and I'm going to start my regular HTTP server. When I do that, basically that HTTP server is going to start the same server we were running before. And if I go and I just start the 8080 in there, then we have our page. And all of this, it's going to be just standard JavaScript. So if you go into that folder, you're going to find here these assets, this complicated file that is actually in a format that it's called minified a little bit. Yeah, minified in here. You can see that you cannot really read the code. Like if you run prettier on that, then it will make it a little bit more readable, but still the names are not going to be very useful. It's interesting enough now with LLMs, if you ask an LLM to add better names to this, it could help you. So a lot of people are using LLMs for decompiling things and things like that. So that's an interesting note in there. But normally what you're going to be sending is things like this. Not because you want to hide your code anymore. Not so much because of that. Most of the time it's just because you want to have as smallest as possible like code base. And that's what one of the things that Vite does in there. It helps you just making sure that your files are not using too much space. So that's what it's doing in there. And all of that code, this is your regular index HTML. Look at where it is loading things, and then it has all of these things, even a CSS is going to be sent in there. The cool news is that, or actually this is interesting. So if like something important in here, is that let's say that I want to add something else in here. So I'm actually going to make a mistake in here. Let's go and say I'm going to have a section, and inside that section, this is the index of React application. As you can see, Prettier is complaining and ESLint is complaining, and if you go and see the reason why, it is saying expressions must have only one parent element. The reason why that's happening is that if you remember the way things are created in here, at the end of the day, you have to be running this create element, and that create element, like each one of your components, needs to return only one of those. That's why you need to have only one of those. So whenever you're creating your components, you have to make sure that your components are always like having one element that it's actually like joining everything. And then that's what this div does. And if you don't want to use like any element because you don't want anything to be generated in the HTML, you can use this special element or tag from React or JSX that it's called a fragment, if I'm not mistaken. And that is just going to be putting that straight in there. So if you do that, notice that I changed this and this hasn't changed. If I refresh, it still doesn't change. And the problem is that it doesn't change because the code that is in here, it's obsolete. So I need to recompile. I hope that makes sense. Because basically, for you to do that, then I have to come, let's do it in here. So if I do then the npm run build, which is going to do the Vite build, this Vite build, and then I refresh, then I get it. So basically, when you're running the development server, that development server is the one that is going to be doing that. So that is very important. And it's going to be very important because that's how you actually connect Node, Express, and React, okay? Which is what I'm going to explain in the next video.